What's up everyone, it's a knife side here, and today I'm going to be doing a video talking about my most carried knives of 2020. And 2020 has been a year where I've realized that I like to carry knives for a longer period of time. It's not like a super long period of time, like 2 or 3 months straight, but I do like to carry knives for 2 or 3 weeks at a time. I feel like doing that really makes me realize the performance of the steel and basically just how it performs over time, how it strops up, how it hones, how it sharpens. That really helps me get a greater understanding of the knife. And there's nothing against carrying a new knife every day. I just feel like when I do that, I kind of forget about the performance of a knife if I've carried it in the past. So without further ado, let's get started on the list. And coming in at number 10 is the one you see right here, the ZT-0562 tie. And this is a knife that I got in late 2019. Keep in mind that this list, not all the items I've had for the whole year of 2020. And so sometimes I'm grading it based on how much I've carried it in the time that I've owned it. But this one was a knife that I carried a lot at the start of the year because it was probably my first premium knife, I guess I would say. It's about $280, so yes, it's very expensive. But you know, this knife, it's not really sentimental to me, but I really do like it. And I have given ZT some hate in the past, but I think that if you're looking for a ZT, the 0562 is a great place to start. Now, I don't really take my opinion for a fact because this is the only ZT I've ever had, but I've seen a lot of people talk about this knife. Seems like one of their best models. I haven't had any issues with lock failure with this knife. The lockup seems fine. You know, it is a little bit thick behind the edge for me, and that's probably why it doesn't get carried and used as much anymore. That's probably why it's number 10 on the list. But this 20 CV seems to have been done pretty fine. At least that's what I can tell from sharpening. And overall, this knife, it was one of my first nice knives, and I really do like it. So now for number 9, this is a kind of a budget knife, and it's one of my favorite budget knives that I have that I feel like is really underrated. It is the Kershaw Leek. And the Kershaw Leek is made in the USA. It's in that $40 to $45 price range. It's spring assisted. It's a liner lock. It's got 14C28 in blade steel and aluminum handle scales. And that's one thing. This is not your average budget knife. It's not, let me find one. It's not your average D2, G10 liner lock flipper on bearings. It's just not that. I really like 14C28 in. I really like the Wharncliffe blade shape. This is hollow ground. It gets decently thin behind the edge. The ergonomics are pretty comfortable. Yes, it does have its issues. Like a bunch of people complain about the tip being super thin. You very well could break that off if you are doing a little bit of prying with it. The carry isn't that good just because it's not that good for a tip up carry. You know, tip down isn't that big of a deal to me. And this is a knife that I carried a lot when I lost my native. If you guys have been watching the channel for a decent amount of time, you guys know that I lost my St. Nick's Native 5 lightweight, the 4V1 with red FRN handles. And so after that, I was really scared to carry a nice knife, as you guys would probably assume. And I still haven't gotten back to carrying like my most expensive knives, but this is a knife that after I lost the native, I carried this a lot because it was a budget knife and I wasn't afraid to lose it. And it really has been a good user. And a bunch of people in my family own this knife, and it's just a very good little EDC knife. You know, it's not some super hard, strong worker, but it is just great for the things that you need it to do. The next one on the list, coming in at number 8, is the large Sebenza 31, my very first Sebenza. And, you know, it's a Sebenza. I got this in around June, I think, and I carried it a decent amount during the summer. I didn't carry it as much just because even though the Sebenza isn't super heavy, it is full titanium and there is no internal milling on it. And so for that reason, I wasn't really carrying it all that much in light shorts that I wear in the summer. And in the winter, I got another Sebenza that I carried more. So that's why it isn't higher on the list. But the Sebenza is just a great knife. And I really do like the plain Jane version. I just feel like that it looks really good. If you are getting a Sebenza that's going to be a user, obviously the ones with the inlays are very good too, but I think that over time the plain Jane variations really show wear and it just looks great over time. But the next one on the list is going to be the ProTech SBR, and as you can see, this one, or I don't know if you can see, but this one has been reground by Alex Steingraber. It is now 10 thousandths behind the edge, and if you guys know, it was 26 thousandths behind the edge from the factory, and as like, what is this blade, like 2.5 inches, maybe a little bit more than that. That 26 thousandths behind the edge for this size of knife is just way too thick behind the edge. That's like a hard use blade geometry. I'd honestly like my knives thinner if it was a hard use blade geometry. But yeah, 26 thousandths behind the edge, it was just not a good cutter at all. And I pretty much liked everything else about the knife except that portion. So after getting it reground, it is very comfortable in my hand. It's just a very good secondary carry, and in the summer, it's a very good primary carry. And I really do like this knife. It's one of my favorite small knives that I own. Coming in at number 6 is the Spyderco Sage 5 Lightweight. I keep saying this, and I'm going to keep saying it, but this is probably the most underrated Spyderco in my opinion. Spyderco makes a lot of underrated models just because knives like the PM2 and Para 3 get so much hype that I feel like people just pass up the fact on how good that these knives are. Basically, the good things about this is even though it's a smaller knife and it's really lightweight, you can get a full 4-finger grip on it. And I think that the reason that people kind of wrote this knife off and didn't really care about it that much is because, like I said, it's called the Sage 5 Lightweight, but it's not that much lighter than the regular Sage 5. And even though, yeah, I mean, the name isn't that accurate, it still is a thing that this knife is light, it carries very well, and it really should just be called the Sage 5 FRN, but still, I don't really care about the name, I just care about the knife, and it is a great knife. This leaf blade shape is so simple but so effective, just that little bit of belly and a lot of flat, and you also have very good access to that tip for cuts like that, I guess you could say. And the ergos, one thing I like about the ergos is that this thumb ramp here is not very extreme at all. Let me pull out a PM2 really quick. As you can see, it takes a huge ramp up there, and so when you're gripping it up here, it feels like your thumb is just crammed in right there. The Sage 5 gives you a little bit more room to work, and I just feel like it's a great knife. S30V steel has held up great for me, and I've carried this knife in jeans, I've carried it in athletic shorts. It's just been a really great EDC carry for me, and it's also been a very much a user. I don't know if these scratches are going to show up on camera, but yeah, it's definitely been a user for me, and it's going to continue to be one. Sage 5 Lightweight, it's a knife that if I don't know what knife to carry, I'll usually just throw that in my pocket, and it does fine. Coming in at number 5 on the list, the reason I did not carry my 31 more is because I got the large Sabenza 21 with an Insingo blade and black micarta inlays. And this is probably my favorite variation of the Sabenza that obviously I own, but probably one of my favorite ones out there. You know, probably I'd like the Damascus with the boxed elder burl handles. That one looks so good. But this is a knife that I just feel like it's one of the best and well-built Sabenzas out there. If you guys know, I keep saying this and I'm going to keep saying it. The Insingo blade is my favorite blade shape. It's just, I think it looks good. I think it cuts very well. It has the ability of utility cuts as a Wharncliffe because that tip is so low, but it also has the power of slicing like a knife with belly to it because it's got this gradual belly throughout, and it really just makes it such a good performer. And for me, doing basic EDC tasks, it is such a great blade shape. The micarta inlays really fill this out in the hand. Even though the plain Jane versions are very comfortable, ergonomically speaking, the micarta inlays really make it a lot fatter in your hand and just make it a little bit more comfortable. It carries great. This action on this Sabenza is very well tuned. And yeah, this is one of my favorite knives, probably my favorite knife. And honestly, like I said, I lost my Native 5, and so this knife, I haven't been carrying it out in public very much just because it's $550 and I still am timid to lose it. But I have been carrying this small 21 a lot because this one is cheaper and it is a user for me, so I'm not afraid to lose that one. Or I mean, I don't want to lose any knife, but you guys know what I'm saying. I'm still not there to where I'm carrying this out in public, but this is a around the house user for me a lot. Pretty much every time I'm just chilling at home, I have this knife in my pocket and it gets a lot of use. So it's not higher on the list just because I don't carry it out in public. But the next one on the list is the Microtech LUDT. And when I got this knife, I pretty much only carried it. I really do like this knife. I feel like the LUDT is a knife that does so many things well that other knife companies don't really even address. Mine is one thing. All right, so here's the things that it does good. This thing is about 10 thousandths behind the edge, and I sharpen this, and I actually drop the angle. Now, I freehand, so I can't give you an exact like degree measurement, but it is a pretty low angle. It's very thin behind the edge. And it's just such a good cutter. It's got a crown spine. Microtech has a bunch of attention to detail in their knives, which I think is something that companies kind of pass over. I feel like they're always trying to get the cheapest price for the money. So not that they cut corners, but they don't make quality of life and little nice improvements. Like if you look at this, it's got a crown spine. The jimping is actually a part of the crown spine, so it's not very sharp. There is a slight taper from thick to thin here, and I don't really know what that does, but I do know that this knife is very comfortable. The ergonomic lines, as you can see, it's just straight here and straight here. So this is pretty much going to be very comfortable for any hand size out there if your hands are big enough, which I'm pretty sure that this will just be very comfortable for anyone who uses it. The pinch grip right here is very functional and very effective, and this is just a knife that is great for the price. The main problems with it is the springs break here pretty frequently. I would like to see Microtech fix that, and also the heat treatment on this 204P. It hasn't been like, oh man, this thing chips and rolls like crazy, and it hasn't been very hard to sharpen and knock off a burr, but it has not impressed me. It has not been like, oh, the 20CV that people always hype up. So I wish that Microtech would up the heat treatment, fix the spring breaking problem. But other than that, man, this knife is so good. And or I guess another negative could be that it's kind of in and out of stock frequently, or it's not really in stock that much because everyone buys them. But if they were readily available, this would probably be my most suggested knife in that $250 price range. It's just a great one. And the next one coming in at number 3 is the Spyderco Para 3 Lightweight. And after I got the Sage 5, I honestly didn't carry this knife that much because I like the Sage 5 Lightweight just a little bit more. But I have had this knife for over a year, a very long time. And so I pretty much carried this all throughout the summer frequently to work a lot. From January till pretty much I got my Sage 5. This was off and on in my pocket. And the Para 3 Lightweight, even though it has its issues, it's still a very functional knife at its heart. You know, it is super lightweight, which is great for carrying it in light clothes. My main issues with it is just the build quality is not the best. If you guys don't know, it only has one washer running in there, and so I rarely will see one on center. Pretty much 95% of the ones that I see, I'd say, are off center. And even though it doesn't really have any issues with like the action because of that, I just feel like that were they trying to save weight by eliminating one washer? Like what is that, like a couple grams of weight? I just really don't see like that's that big of an issue. I did mod mine out, as you guys can see here. I scratched up the blade trying to sharpen when I had no clue how to sharpen. So I did an acid etch stone wash, got some purple hardware. I think it looks good. This is a user for me, and it's just a great functional knife. I do have my nitpicks, like I've stated, but at the end of the day, this has been around for a very long time, and it will continue to stay here. And then coming in at number 2 on the list, we have the Hogue Deca. And this is a knife that in my review, I said this, and I'm still going to stick by it. I said that this is a knife that doesn't really do anything great or extraordinary. It's just kind of good in every way. You know, the heat treatment on the 20CV, at least on mine, isn't good. I hope that Hogue addresses this issue. For all I know, they already could be, but at least for mine, it is a little bit soft. I've probably sharpened this closer to 10 times, and it rolls and chips on me very easily. This is a knife that I have in my pocket a lot of times when I'm outside doing yard work, and so it probably would be considered a hard user for me. It's not a knife that I'd really want to just beat down and beat up like crazy, but it is one that I'm not afraid to use. One thing that I can just give Hogue some props for is, like I said, I've sharpened this about 10 times, and look at that sharpening choil. No smile at all, no little flare up at the end. Very good job on that. If you guys don't know what I'm talking about, this is one where it's not very good. I've probably sharpened this knife just once, and then there is a smile on there just because that plunge grind is just isn't cut. The choil isn't cut as big as it really should be for that plunge grind. So this is done very well by Hogue. Also, this knife, it is a little bit thin, but the ergonomics are pretty comfortable, no complaints. It is very lightweight. I think that's kind of a commonality with a lot of these knives. I guess I like to carry lighter weight knives. I never really thought about it, but I'm not someone who carries these big, hefty, chunky knives all with me. You know, in jeans, it's not much of an issue to me at all because I honestly can't really tell the difference in jeans between 5-ounce knife and a 3-ounce knife. And it doesn't really bother me with the weight. But this knife, it's very lightweight, it carries good, it's got a pretty functional blade shape. I wish it was ground thinner behind the edge, but I mean, I can't really argue with how much I've carried this knife, and it really just has been a consistent user for me over the course of this year. And I'm also excited to see what Hogue has in the future, because I feel like they are a company to look at. I mean, they're made in the USA. They're pushing really good price points, like that $150 price points for the materials that they use. That is great. But without further ado, number one on the list, you guys have probably been expecting it, the Spyderco Gale Bradley 2. And this, if you look at the amount of pocket time all these knives have gotten, this one probably doesn't have the most. But like I said, for the time that I've owned it, I have used this knife so much. This is a knife that if there's a bunch of cardboard that I need to get broken down, I grab this knife. It's about, I think it's closer to 10 thousandths behind the edge. It's a hollow grind. You know, for those new people, I expect this video to do a little bit better than some of my other ones. So for those new people, I'm going to get a quick measurement. Look at that, 9 thousandths behind the edge, and a hollow grind. So basically, it's very thin, a super good cutter. The stock thickness is average. This is such a good user knife. Also, the ergos are very simple and just the ergonomic lines, so it is very comfortable in pretty much any grip that you can imagine, even holding it upside down, zero hot spots whatsoever. It's good in this pinch grip. I said this in my review, but other than this smile at the choil right here, this blade shape, or this blade in general, is perfect. Like I said, hollow ground, super thin behind the edge, just a basic drop point blade shape, and it's in M4. You know, I'm not that much of a steel nerd, but I really have enjoyed sharpening, stropping, and just using M4, especially with a toothy edge. It's just performed very well for me. So yeah, this is a knife that it's probably the best user Spyderco that I've ever handled. You know, there are probably some really good ones out there because Spyderco is just, they're a good brand, but they're better than just the PM2. They're better than just the Para 3. I feel like it would be, a lot of people would really enjoy Spyderco more if they looked at some of their less popular models like this Gale Bradley 2. Honestly, if you're looking for a user knife, I'd highly suggest the Gale Bradley 2. The main complaint with this is the lock bar access, but I don't know, this knife is pretty scratched up because it is definitely a user for me, and so when I'm just opening and closing this every time I pull it out of my pocket to use it, that lock bar access is not an issue to me at all. So for those reasons, the Gale Bradley 2 is number one on the list, one of my favorite knives, and it is definitely sticking around. I would suggest picking one up if you are in search of a good Spyderco user. So now I'm going to be doing this stuff that isn't really knives, so I assume that probably the people now, I've already filtered out the ones who don't care that much, but my loyal viewers, I know you guys are still watching. So let's talk about what is on my keys. I really would like to upgrade to some nicer stuff, but I have this little wee pry bar that I got last year on Black Friday. I had this Olight flashlight, the i1R EOS. It's pretty simple. I think a bunch of people have this, and so I don't really use these all that much just because I'm not that much of a pry bar or flashlight guru or anything, just because I don't really need them all that much. So I keep those just in case I need them, but at least for now, that is what is on my keys. What's on my wrist? I don't have it on my wrist right now because I'm doing this video or whatever. It is the Timex Expedition Scout. If you guys have been watching me for, I guess, a year, I got this knife last year for Christmas. Or no, not this knife, this watch last year for Christmas. And it's a watch that I've actually worn constantly. And no, it's not that nice. I have a leather strap here and the buckle on it is plastic. But you know, it works for me. I don't have any complaints except for one. It kind of ticks loud. I don't know if you guys can hear this. It just kind of has a loud tick. So if I'm taking a test or just up by myself in the morning and I hear this thing ticking, yeah, it kind of drives me crazy. But other than that, I really do like this watch. I really have no complaints. I followed Nick Shabazz's wise words. very effectively, and I did not get into watches. So the next one, it's this Victorinox, not classic, Cadet. This is a knife that I just throw in my pocket. You know, I don't really use these tools all that much because I obviously don't use a bottle opener, I don't use a file, and so really, I just use it for this blade. What I use this blade for is if someone needs a knife, I'm not going to give them my main primary knife that I really like. I'll hand them this. And also, it is just very thinly ground and just a really good cutter. If I'm in a situation where I don't feel comfortable pulling out my big primary knife, I will just pull this out and use it. This blade finish does look different because I just took this to a 1000 grit stone and just kind of flattened it. It's also like 5 thousandths behind the edge now, which is kind of funny. So it's a very good cutter, and it's very thin behind the edge, and it's very sharp. So that is it for, I mean, I guess that's not really, I guess that's kind of more of a knife for me, but also a tool for a lot of people. For wallets, this is the wallet that I've been carrying. I got it a while ago, and I really have loved this wallet. It's the Night Heron Leather Great Heron wallet. I think that's the name of it. Night Heron Leather is a company. They are out of Texas. It's a small business, and it's one guy who runs it. He hand stitches and hand makes all of his goods, and that really means a lot to me. I think that is really cool. And this wallet has really held up over time. As you can see, there's the imprint of my card on there, so I do like the little patina that has formed around it. Obviously, I'm not showing the card in this video for obvious reasons. And the job that I work, I do sometimes get tips, and so this little back portion I am able to hold a lot of cash in this, and it has been stretched out pretty big, not full of anything really more than one, so I'm not trying to flex on you guys very much. But yeah, this wallet has been great for me. It's minimalist, it's lightweight, it fits in my front pocket. I honestly forget about it, and I really do like this wallet. For the last one, the pin, this is the Zebra F701. I don't really carry a pin all that much just because I don't really find the need to use it that much. But for at least schoolwork, this is a pin that I really gravitate towards if I'm pretty much in any class other than math and science, because I'm usually taking notes or whatever, and so I don't really need to erase a pen in my other classes. But basically, this is a pen that I've had a lot of writing with. It is a little bit on the heavy side, at least for what I'm used to, but I really like this jimping, or this grip area. I think it's called knurling. I guess that's pen terminology, but it writes very well. I have no complaints with it. I'm not a pen nerd at all, but I would like to upgrade some of this stuff to some USA made things, just because I don't know, I like to support USA made companies, and I'd like to get some nicer gear other than knives. But the truth is, I'm not really that into watches and pry bars and flashlights. So for that reason, I haven't really grown that much in the flashlight industry and the other gear industry. And one more thing about flashlights is USA made brands. There's pretty much like Surefire, Okluma, that's really all the ones that I know. There are probably more out there, but I feel like there's just so many Chinese flashlight brands that I wish there were more that had stuff made in America. But that is going to do it for the video. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed my list of the top 10 most carried things in 2020. You know, if you want to do your list down in the comment section, or honestly, if you don't feel like writing all that, just tell me your most carried knife of 2020. I'd be really interested to see what you guys are carrying. But that is going to do it for the video. Sorry for it being a little long. Almost at that 25-minute mark. But thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe if you are new. And I'll see you guys in the next one.